The photos arrived before the call did. Daniel and Mara under a string of backyard lights, gold rings held up for the camera, sparklers tracing paper stars. The caption read, "We kept it simple, intimate, exactly right for us." I stood in the kitchen, my blue dress still pinned with a tailor's tag. Victor had left a note beside the kettle. "Back by noon, love. Don't forget your vitamins." I forgot the vitamins. I forgot the kettle. I remembered only the ache that has no place to sit. That afternoon the call came. "Mom," Daniel said, laughter still in his voice from whatever celebration lingered. It happened fast. Paperwork fell into place. The officiant was a friend of a friend. We kept it tiny. "Tiny like a postage stamp?" I asked. "Or tiny like a secret?" He chuckled. "Don't be like that. We didn't want a spectacle." I looked at the dress, not a spectacle, just a soft blue with sleeves like folded wings. I had bought it months ago after yet another of Mara's. "We're almost there, just one more delay" speeches. There had been so many almost a venue, almost a date, almost a job offer. There had also been money, hours, flowing like warm soup into cold bowls. When the call ended, I sat and did something small and revolutionary. I put a paper clip on my heart, not to clamp it shut, only to save the page. Then I took out a notebook and began a ledger, not of blame, but of facts. Rent support. $600 a month times 30 months equals $18,000. Groceries and utilities. $250 a month times 30 months equals $18,000. 30 months equals $7,500. Gifts, birthdays, holidays. $3,200, emergency dental for Daniel. $980, moving truck when they had to leave the last place. $420, seed money for Mara's online shop. $5,000, gas, electric arrears, we covered. $700. Total $35,800. I read the number the way you read a verdict out loud to be sure you've heard correctly. $35,800. I had written those checks with a mother's hope that generosity is a ladder, not a leash. I had to ask quietly, had I helped or had I trained? The kettle finally clicked off. I poured the water, forgot the tea, and called Victor. "Tell me you're sitting," I said. "I am," he answered, "and standing, if needed. They married last night. We weren't invited." He exhaled the way a door exhales when the weather changes. "All right," he said. "So what's our next kind thing that isn't a foolish thing?" The phrasing was pure Victor, mercy braided to sense. I took the ledger with me to the bank. Ms. Chen, the branch manager, had watched me sign countless transfers with a friendly efficiency. When she saw my ledger, she stood up, walked around her desk, and sat beside me. "I'm canceling the automatic supports," I told her, "and I want a password phrase on my accounts." "What phrase?" she asked. "Calm boundaries." I smiled. "If anyone calls pretending to be me, I want you to ask for that phrase." She nodded. "Consider it done." It was a small button to press, a cancel here, a lock there. But I felt my lungs expand. Not triumph, just air. They came the next day while Victor was out walking with Evan. I saw them on the porch camera. Mara with a warm bakery bag. Daniel in a suit that still had a tailor's chalk line on the cuff. And a third person I didn't know, carrying a leather folio. "Miriam," Mara's voice could sweeten coffee. "We brought cinnamon twists." "And a little paperwork," Daniel added like an afterthought, "just to make things easier." Whose things? I asked, opening the door only as wide as my foot. The stranger spoke. I'm Travis Kendall, financial consultant. Daniel tells me you're overwhelmed. If you'll sign these temporary management forms, they can handle payments for you. Overwhelmed, I repeated, tasting the word. Interesting diagnosis from a stranger in my doorway. Mara lifted the bakery bag, the universal white flag. We all need help, Mama M. It's just until the wedding dust settles. The dust has already settled, I said. You two married yesterday. She blinked. So you saw. Good. Then you know it's official. I know it's done, I replied. Now here's what else is done. I'm stepping out of the role of open wallet. Daniel's smile fissured. You can't just... I can, I said, my voice quiet as a library. And I am. If you want relationship, I'm here. If you want money, I'm not. Kendall slid a sheaf of papers toward the gap in the door. I didn't touch them. Please leave, I said. You may text me tomorrow to request a time to talk, with Victor and me present and without paperwork. Mara's face performed concern. Miriam, it's scary to age. It is, I agreed. And part of why it's scary is that sometimes people treat you like you're removable. I closed the door gently. Calm is not the same as soft. Victor returned 10 minutes later with a bag of oranges and Evan in tow. I told them what happened. Evan's jaw squared. You want me here tomorrow? Yes, I said. But not as muscle. As witness, we set 3 agreements for the next day's conversation and wrote them on an index card. 1, no surprise documents. 2, no money talk without a calendar and a budget. 3, no insults, including the soft kind that pretend to worry. Leah came over that night with tulips. It's not lost on me, she said, that the child who never asked for a dime gets the tulips and the child who did gets the ledger. You got parents who practiced on you, I said, and we were better when your brother arrived. Until we weren't, she squeezed my hand. Tomorrow, if they're cruel, I'm walking out with you. Cruel doesn't get our time anymore. They arrived without the consultant, which I took as a small mercy. We set out tea and built a conversation we hoped could carry weight. It did for exactly 8 minutes. Okay, cards on the table, Daniel said finally, folding his arms. We counted on you. We built our plans assuming you'd keep doing what you've always done. That's the problem, I said. Assumptions built on someone else's labor are not plans. They are habits. Habits end. Mara's voice found a tremor. We're 2 months behind on rent. The landlord is threatening to evict us. I'm sorry, I answered, because I was. I will help in 2 ways only. I'll pay for a session with a credit counselor of your choosing, and I'll print a list of hiring fairs. Beyond that, I will not fund adult lives. You're being manipulated, Daniel snapped, by Leah, by Evan, by that bank lady. You've become unreasonable. Victor spoke then, calm as a porch light. Reasonable people can say no. Their eyes cut to him. For years, they had treated Victor like a gorgeous piece of furniture. Useful, comforting, not exactly in their way. Now they saw the weight-bearing nature of him. Meeting over, I said. We'll talk again when there's a budget. Budget? Mara laughed, thin as tissue. This is about love. Love is a verb, I said, standing. Right now the verb you've chosen is take. They left the way wind leaves, annoyed to have been noticed. 2 mornings later, a knock. A woman with a municipal lanyard and a practiced smile stood on the porch. "I'm Ms. Ortega with Senior Services," she said, clearly uncomfortable. "We received a report that you may be at risk, confused, isolating, potentially exploited by neighbors." I could have argued. Instead, I made tea and called our attorney, Asha Raman, whom Leah had recommended months ago when we updated our wills. Asha arrived in half an hour with a canvas tote and the stillness of a person who never forgets where she set her keys. "Ms. Ortega," Asha said, tone friendly but steely, "we're happy to answer questions, and we'll also need the complaint number." I showed Ortega my medication list, vitamins, and the occasional arthritis pill, the calendar with walking dates, book club, volunteer tutoring. I handed over the ledger, not of their expenses, but of mine, tax receipts, a list of charities, the routine maintenance for the house Victor and I keep, like a small museum of our marriage. Ortega closed her binder. "I'm sorry," she said. "This looks retaliatory. I'll be closing the file." "Thank you," I said, meaning it. After she left, Asha turned to us. "They may try for conservatorship," she said. "If so, we'll reply with evaluations and boundaries. Meanwhile, change your locks, add doorbell cameras, and create a money policy, a written one you can hand to anyone who asks." "What goes in a money policy?" Victor asked. "Simple sentences," Asha said. "Short words, long spine." We wrote ours that night, Miriam and Victor's money policy 1. We pay our own bills first. 2. We do not co-sign loans. 3. We give gifts we can afford with no strings. We do not fund lifestyles. 4. Help equals information, referrals, and sometimes a one-time written plan with an ending date. 5. Abusive speech ends conversations. I printed 2 copies, one for the kitchen corkboard, one for the front hall table. Leah called it our household constitution. It arrived by certified mail a week later. In the matter of Miriam Hale, Hale is my maiden name. They'd used it to make me feel small, I think. Petition for appointment of conservator. The attached declarations painted me as susceptible, forgetful, and socially isolated. A pharmacist's note implied I mishandled medications. Later, the pharmacist, a kind man named Mr. Singh, would apologize, swearing he'd been told the paper was for a discount program. He wrote a second statement correcting the first. A neighbor I barely knew complained that I had installed cameras like a paranoid person. Paranoid, I repeated. What a convenient word for people who don't like it when you lock the door they used to open. Asha built our reply like a scaffolding, a cognitive evaluation from Dr. Alvarez, a neurologist with warm eyes and sharper tests, statements from our book club, from the Literacy Center, a letter from Evans HR showing the new hire fares, photos of Victor and me in our garden, grinning like kids. Judges are human, Asha warned. We'll tell the truth clearly and let it stand. No theater. No theater, Victor echoed, patting my knee. Just seats for the truth. The courtroom smelled like old wood and pencil shavings. The judge, Honorable Delia Garcia, watched everything the way a hawk watches in slow motion. Daniel's lawyer stood first. Your Honor, our clients are concerned. Miriam's finances have taken wild turns. She's fallen under the influence of controlling outsiders, and she's estranged from family who have always supported her. Always, Victor whispered. I squeezed his hand. Mara testified with perfect posture. She's different, Judge. She's cold. Then Leah took the stand and did something I have loved about her since she was 9. She told the plain truth without fire, without sugar. My mother is not confused, Leah said. She's consistent. She says the same thing now. She said when I moved into my first apartment, I love you. I'm not your bank. The difference is that this time she's enforcing it. Mr. Singh clarified his earlier statement. Evan described watching Daniel try to slide papers through a half-open door. Our neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, not related to the doctor, testified that she'd sat in my kitchen 3 times in 2 weeks while we folded laundry and ate the cookies she insists are medicinal. Dr. Alvarez summarized my evaluation. Above average cognitive performance for age, oriented to person, place, time, and, importantly, purpose. When I was called, I stood and let the quiet do half the work. Miriam, the judge said, why did you stop sending money? Because I realized my giving had become someone else's plan, I answered. And plans funded by other people's fear or guilt are unstable. I'm willing to help with tools and time. I'm unwilling to make adulthood optional. Do you still love your son? She asked. I do, I said. Enough to stop doing what keeps him from becoming who he could be. The judge looked down at the file, then up at me. Thank you. Her ruling took 5 minutes. The petition is denied, she said. There is no evidence of cognitive impairment or undue influence. The respondents' recent choices are coherent with a written policy and supported by medical evaluation. Fees and costs to the petitioners. The gavel did not bang. It was kinder than television. In the parking lot, Daniel glanced at me with a flicker of something complicated. Mara's mouth was a line you could cut paper on. They left without speaking. At home, I made soup. Victor chopped parsley the size of rain. Leah laid 4 bowls, even though there were only 4 of us. Habit from years of hoping Daniel would show up hungry for food, not funding. Now what? Evan asked. Now, I said, we live. We changed the locks anyway. We added a second bank just for everyday bills and put a note in our estate file that no one gets access without Asha present. We joined a walking group. I returned to the library to tutor reading on Tuesdays. Victor and I drove to the coast and sat in air that tasted like a clean slate. It came a month later, on a Thursday that smelled like cut grass. Mom, Daniel said softly, can we talk? Yes, I said, with a calendar. What day? Today, he blurted. Not need, I said gently. Want to discuss? He caught himself. I want to discuss work and rent. We met in the coffee shop where I've graded a lifetime of essays. He wore the same suit, no chalk marks now, without Mara. I'm angry, he said first, and embarrassed, and he searched for the third thing like it had fallen under the table. Scared. I know those 3, I said. They visit often. He looked at the ledger I'd brought, the blank version. Will you help me make one? Yes, I said. Time and paper I have. We filled in columns. Income, due dates, the cost of streaming services that add up to a mortgage if you aren't careful. When he asked for money, I reminded him of the policy. When he asked for a ride to an interview, I set my alarm for 6:30 and made him coffee at 6:45. He didn't get that job. He got the next one. Or perhaps the job got him, caught him right at the moment he stopped waiting for rescue. Mara didn't call. I sent a card anyway on their 2-month anniversary. May your vows learn to carry themselves. I do not know whether she read it. We didn't have a cinematic reunion. We had something smaller that I trust more, repeated Tuesdays. Daniel would come by to mow the lawn and then eat soup with us and talk about the world's most boring subject, which is also the most honest, budgets. One Tuesday he said, "I thought you were proving a point." "I was," I said, "that I'm a person." His mouth twitched. And not a... He stopped himself. He'd been about to say it, the ugly word people use when they don't want to say mother. "A person," I repeated, saving us both. He nodded. "I'm trying. I can tell." People imagine boundaries are fences with razor wire. Mine are sentences I keep in a drawer like oven mitts. I take them out when things get hot. "I love you. I don't fund that. We can talk about plans, not emergencies. If you raise your voice, I will pause this conversation and try again tomorrow. I help when there's a budget with an ending date." No, the whole sentence. Leah added one to the list. "We don't make each other smaller to get what we want." Victor added another. "We prefer solutions that work when we're not around." We taped them to the inside of the pantry door. The blue dress hung there through winter. By spring, I had it tailored not for a wedding, but for our anniversary dinner. Victor took me someplace with live jazz and a dessert that looked like a mistake the chef had loved enough to keep. On the way home, we drove past Daniel and Mara's building. The window light was warm. A broom leaned against their stoop, which I took as a sacrament. At home, I stood in the pantry and read the sentences again. I didn't need them that night, but I read them the way a pilot runs a checklist, because love is beautiful and gravity is real. I am Miriam. I am 71. I am someone's mother and someone's wife and someone's neighbor who returns library books on time. I learned late, but not too late, what calm can do when it's given a job. I'm Miriam, keeper of calm boundaries, and I am home. What sentence would be hardest for you to say out loud? Whisper it once, then say it again, standing up inside your life.